The race is on for governor of Virginia. I'm Cam from Bulwark. I'm joined today by my friend Lakshya, and we want to get into it because there was a debate last night that was very, very odd. I want to show you a couple clips from it. And just so you can get a taste of what we're going to be talking about, let's look at a clip of some of the interruptions that were happening.
The same.
No matter who is leading the
and
charge
so
on
when
what?
it is important that all
When
of us set
someone
a better
showed a
example.
sign that said,
And so
I would not drink
no
from
matter
a water
who
fountain,
is
it took you a whole
providing
day to say
the comments
something,
that
Abigail.
are
move
advocating
on, but it's
for
difficult for
political
us to hear.
She has
if
no
you're both
courage.
talk-
You
but it's-
cannot be governor.
The
No
audience
courage.
can't hear.
The audience can't hear when you're talking over each other, so we just want to make
Excuse
sure that
me,
we
I
limit
was
that
not
so
talking
people
over
can
her.
hear.
She has no courage.
We're
Okay.
going to the next topic
Yes,
now.
we are moving on to the next topic with Tom.
So, Lakshya, a lot of people on the right are really hype about this race. I am personally of the belief that is because whenever a black person espouses their talking points, they get really excited since it helps them point at the Democrats and say, no, you're the racists. Anytime the Democrats play into identity politics, of course, the Republicans like to talk about how fake and performative it is. But whenever the Republicans have a person of color who's on their side, the first step they take is to make it all about identity. What are you seeing on the polling for this race? Like, is this game over? Spanberger's got it on lock, or does Winsome Sears have some weird chance at this?
Cam, I think we really overrate the impact of debates in general. And I think, really speaking, the people on the right who are excited about this debate are mostly just coping because this race is essentially safe Democratic at the moment. It's widely been acknowledged by Republicans and by Democrats that Spanberger is on track to win and win handily. You don't have to take my word for it. You can just look at the Republican spending patterns. They're spending more on the attorney general's race than they are on the gubernatorial race. Spanberger has spent close to $20 million on the airwaves. Winsome Sears has spent less than like $10 million. So the Democrats are really just in commanding position to win this election. Now, how does this connect to the debate? I'll tell you, because I think partisans are the only people that really get excited by debates. The only valuable thing that ever comes out of debates for changing the minds of swing voters is if someone has a disaster that becomes well and truly publicized by adding new information to the race that people did not necessarily have before. Sears is already viewed as a lunatic by Virginia. If you look at the polls, you'll see in issue after issue, no matter if it's Republican coded or Democratic coded, Spanberger is in a double-digit lead a lot of the time. And so this clip
is this something? Oh my God, we're doing the fucking thing from the debate. I'm sorry. I'm literally being Winsome Sears and talking over you. I feel so, especially right after we watch that clip. You finish your thing and then I'll go.
You know, what I was just thinking is that it's the clip. Yeah, Sears looks crazy in it. But ask yourself, how much new information is this adding to the people of Virginia? It's not something Spanberger needs to cut ads on. She's already up by 11 in the polls. It's not something that people are going to be spending their time watching because the people who are undecided right now are by and large not tuning into this debate. Maybe you get like a 1% change here or there, but a 1% change doesn't matter in terms of changing the fundamentals of the race, which is, you know, this is a safe Democratic race.
And was that always going to be the case? Like, would there have been a Republican they could have put up who would have stood a substantially better chance? Or was this going to be on lock from the jump and they sort of put Winsome Sears forward the way they kind of sent McCain out in 2008 with a sort of awareness that it was already game over?
I think at the margins, it obviously all would have mattered. I think if they picked a better nominee for the Republican ticket, it would have been closer. But it was always going to be a tough lift. And here's why, right? Not only is Spanberger a good candidate, she won a tough House race in 2018, continuously overperformed 2018, 2022. But also on top of that, Virginia is a blue state. This sounds a little bit weird to people who look at the governor right now and they're like, well, he's a Republican. But understand that as bad as 2024 was for Democrats, Kamala Harris still won the state by 6 points. And that was in an R+2 year. 2025 is right now about 5-6 points bluer than 2024 was. So you're already beginning with a fundamental of the state being double-digit Democratic.
I guess that's the weird thing about how people are going to be looking at different states moving forward is like, how does the Democratic Party reconcile with the idea that states Trump won are still states where they can see victory? But before we get into that, I just want to play a clip of Winsome Sears talking about solar power, and that's just because it's funny.
The opponent's only plan is solar and wind. Well, what happens when the sun goes down? There is nothing.
Had you not seen that?
No.
Yeah, solar power is bogus because the sun is only up for so much of the day. Thank you, Madam Winsome Sears, for that perspective. But yeah, I do want to kind of move into a conversation about different states where the Democrats might be accidentally throwing in the towel when that is not the right strategy. But before we do, I want to play one more clip on something where Democrats can probably be messaging better, which is jobs and states that are actually doing well in business. Let's take a look.
Places where I do differ, would be on the fact that Virginia lost its place as the #1 place for business, and we have had 7 months of rising unemployment rates here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and I would work to lower costs and grow our economy.
Thank you, Ms.
In the face of
Spanberger.
these challenges.
I kind of do think a big win, like growth space for Democrats, especially with the undecided voters, is going to be like, are your businesses better off right now? You know, are your businesses more successful under Trump, or have you guys actually seen a decline? But back to what we were saying before, like, do you see other states like Virginia where it's important for Democrats to say like, okay, even though Trump won here, we actually still have clear paths to victory as long as we bother to invest?
Well, Virginia, to be clear, was a Harris won state. That was a D+6 state, even in 24.
Can I tell you something? I mix it up with West Virginia so often, and I get really upset about that because I think that they're the same thing and they're so not the same thing. But I kind of loathe the fact that there's a state in this country and then another state that's just the same thing but with West in front of it. Anyway, continue.
I'm with you there. The last time West Virginia and Virginia were close in partisanship was actually 2004. But I think on this note, where can Democrats compete that they've kind of given up because they think, oh, Trump won the state? I actually think Democrats do a good job of stretching the map. They're intent on competing in Iowa, which is a Trump plus 14 state. That's really important because right now, farmers in Iowa are getting hit hard. We're on the verge of a farm crisis 2.0 there. For the people that don't remember this or don't know about this part of history, the farm crisis was what turned the Midwest reliably blue for a generation because Ronald Reagan's administration was viewed as disastrous in their economic policies for the Midwest. Weird things happen in elections. Democrats competing in the Midwest has never been their problem. They will always compete there. But I think they should stretch the map a little. Texas is expensive. Yes, I get it. You know, let things happen if they do. And if they don't, you don't need to put $250 million there. I get it. But just think a little bit broader for a second. Do you think Ken Paxton is a bad candidate?
Are you asking me?
Yes. Do you think Ken Paxton is a bad candidate?
I mean, not for where he's running. I think he would be a bad candidate in a lot of other places. But
I disagree, Cam. I think
you think he sucks?
I think he's a terrible candidate, and I think he's the type of candidate when I see him, look, I've done a lot of work on candidate quality modeling. You know how pessimistic I am on a lot of Democratic chances in general. Ken Paxton is the only candidate that can put Texas in play.
Why is that?
Because he's got an ethics scandal, he has a bunch of affairs, and he has a whole ton of financial scandals, and he's been impeached. Now, the thing is this. People say, oh, well, that happened to Trump, and look at Trump. Does Ken Paxton have 30 years of real estate dealings and TV? Is he a household name in Texas? Is that the first impression people have of Ken Paxton? That's the TV star? Because that was the case for Donald Trump. People thought he was a good businessman. No one thinks that about Ken Paxton. Donald Trump's acolytes don't get the leeway that Donald Trump does.
Yeah, I do see Paxton's similarities with Trump serving to hurt him in a way that they were actually very beneficial to Trump. But who in Texas do you think has the sauce to take him down?
I think it's less about our candidate as long as we pick someone broadly acceptable. And I think all of Joaquin Castro, Colin Allred, and James Talarico are perfectly acceptable. I think it's about Paxton. You let the race become about Paxton.
Allred is so I saw a poll recently that had Allred ahead of Talarico, and I think that I had just kind of I think I had overestimated where Talarico's position was going to be because everybody was so hype about him. But then I was starting to say, okay, a lot of the people I'm seeing on social media throwing the Talarico party and rightfully praising a lot of the really savvy parts of his messaging are not, in fact, people from Texas. So I see Talarico is gaining a lot of national popularity because he's a Democrat who's doing things differently in a way that seems appropriate for the state. But do you think he has a shot against Allred? And, the next question is, do you think that he would have a better shot against their opponent than Allred would? Or do you think Allred is the strongest person they could put forward?
I think that, firstly, Allred being in the lead against Talarico should not be surprising because Allred was just on the airwaves for an entire campaign cycle in Texas. So people still know who the guy is. A lot of people don't know who Talarico is. Talarico was only a few points behind Allred, right? I think it was
like 4, 5, 6 maybe, and that is so impressive. Just because, like you're saying, he's a newcomer.
Yeah,
like this isn't the most familiar face. So I guess there's a path for him as he starts to get that name recognition to start actually slamming Allred. I was just curious what you thought about Allred's strengths overall, and if you think that it's enough for him to stay competitive, or if Talarico's just going to come and kind of take over.
Yeah, I mean, I think Allred's a good candidate. Again, he overperformed against Ted Cruz by more than Beto did in 2018 against Cruz.
Which is crazy to think because Beto was not smacked by Ted Cruz. Beto put up a real fucking fight. He competed.
Yeah, exactly, right? Beto was not facing the same level of headwinds that Allred was either, to be clear. Allred lost by more than Beto did just because the nation was a lot redder in 2024 because people were mad at Biden and the Democratic Party. And that made it harder for Allred. But on the whole,
now that we've swung back into the position we were in during the Beto race where people are mad about Trump, it could be a different story.
Exactly.
And you think Castro is going to throw in for that race?
No, I don't. I don't think Castro is going to run. I think that's a mistake because I think Castro is the strongest Democratic candidate. He's done great in his House races. He would do great with Hispanics. That's Allred's weakness. Allred is not that great with Hispanics. Allred is pretty good with white voters, but he's not that good with Hispanics. You need to be great with Hispanics to win Texas. That's my worry with Allred. Castro would have done that.
And do you think Talarico's, focus on faith and everything like that will give him an edge with Hispanic voters over Allred? Do you think that's going to factor in?
I think it could. Talarico ups the variance in the game, and he has a higher ceiling than Allred does. Allred is a known quantity. There's a limit on what he could do, and that limit might be good enough to beat Paxton because, again, Paxton is that bad. But if you want to maximize your chances, you may want to go with a higher upside option in Talarico because, as we've seen with Talarico, he's actually a very gifted public speaker and a very good fundraiser. And those two things tend to play pretty well.
So I wanted to bring up one more thing. First of all, I agree. And I think we had a guy named Carlos Espina on the show that Tim and I do, the interview show that you were on maybe 6 weeks ago. And Carlos has 13 million followers on TikTok, the vast majority of whom are Hispanic because he does a lot of Spanish speaking videos. And he was just kind of talking to us about where he thinks the Democrats should focus in regaining trust from Latino voters. And one of the things he said was a lot of people in the communities that he's engaging with do see the Democrats as kind of the godless party and a party that needs God. And, I hear that and I'm like, great, separation of church and state, but it is a balancing act where you need to meet people where they're at and speak their language, both literally and figuratively. Carlos also said that Democrats need more Spanish-speaking people going out and advocating on the channels where they reach people. But there's one more thing I want to bring up very quickly, which is one of the crazier moments from the debate last night where Winsome Sears kind of showed just how much of a psycho she is. Let's take a look at them talking about gay marriage.
My opponent was asked about her record of discrimination, and importantly, my opponent has previously said that she does not think that gay couples should be allowed to marry. She has said that she is quote unquote morally opposed to same-sex marriage. My opponent has also previously said that she thinks it's okay for someone to be fired from their job for being gay. That's discrimination.
So I'm wondering, do you think the Republicans are going to, because Winsome Sears is obviously just her own case, but do you think Republicans across the board are going to get harsher on gay issues? Because, there's going to be a lot of throwing the trans community under the bus from Republicans and Democrats alike. But you see Winsome Sears up here straight up saying that doing like pre-2015 homophobia is actually going to be the future. Do you think Republicans are aware that that's something that's going to hurt them, or do you think that they think we've kind of horseshoed to a point in our culture where they can actually start to gain more popularity from attacking gay marriage and similar things?
No. What happened after 2022 when the Republicans ran those freaks in Pennsylvania, Arizona? They ran Doug Mastriano, they ran Kari Lake and Blake Masters. What happened after that? If you notice, Donald Trump put a lot of distance between himself and a national abortion ban. The Republicans ran away from that position. What I think is going to happen here is Sears is going to get clobbered, I think, in about a month. She's going to lose, and I don't think it's going to be particularly close until something really fundamental changes about that race. And if that happens, you're going to see a lot of Republicans looking for explanations as to why she's doing so badly. And I think at that point, you're going to see them being like, well, the whole anti-social crusade thing did not work. She's kind of unhinged. Just don't talk about that, please. And Republicans, to be clear, they're still very homophobic. They are also much less homophobic than they were 15, 20 years ago. And the reason I bring this up is because there is more room in that party and more tolerance in that party's base, as little as it may exist, to allow their candidates to not go on a full-fledged homophobia spree against gay marriage, because that is viewed as settled law by a lot of Republican lawmakers nowadays as well, which seems hard to believe. Trust me, I know. But look at the ad focus now. Look at where Republicans spend their money and what they talk about. Compare that to 12 years ago, and you will see that they're much more okay with just not talking about gay marriage. I think when Sears loses, they're going to learn that lesson again, and they're going to be like, just don't talk about it.
Well, everybody, I'm not going to lie. Until we did this video, I kind of thought it was a slightly closer race, and I thought Spanberger was going to win. I didn't realize it was so overwhelming. I think what it is just like there's a degree to which the Republicans will put races like this on blast solely so they could say like, oh, Democrats, if you really cared about Black women being successful, you would support somebody like Winsome Sears. But they're not actually taking it seriously. They're not actually seeing this as they're basically just trolling the culture war. But anyway, Lakshya, thanks for joining, everybody. We're going to be doing more exciting stuff with Lakshya Monday. I am currently in our frequent contributor Jack Cacciarella's studio, but for everyone complaining about how I'm always recording from a different physical location, I have a fucking apartment now. You're not going to be worried about that anymore. And let me live. Lakshya, thanks for joining. Everybody go vote and subscribe and like and shit like that. See you all later.